And in a teacher education space, if we're seeing harmful behaviors from future teachers, like whose responsibility is it to prevent that from entering the classroom? And I want to have a very serious discussion about that because it hits hard for a number of reasons. I think the main one right now is, well, whose idea is it of harm? I might have a very different understanding of what you do, of what harm looks like. We can talk about the very extreme issues of violence happening in classrooms with adults and students. Or we can talk about microaggressions that are also very impactful and harmful, in my opinion. And so that's sort of this beginning work that I'm doing to be very, very honest about this profession and the people that we allow to be in these spaces. And school districts have the same responsibility when they're hiring folks. So I really want to think through what that looks like to ensure that we remember a classroom space should be joyful, it should be loving, and that's it. Anything else, I feel like we should not accept it. And I refuse to live in a world where I can't dream of something like that.
Yeah, like this is sparking a lot of things for me that like typically don't come up on this podcast, but because like capital P politics are like outside of like my expertise and area of emphasis. But like when we're thinking about, I think a lot about the 3.3 million people who are educators in this country, right? 100,000 new educators coming through every year. Until like before the pandemic, there was like a pretty standard credentialing process, right? And like now with people leaving the field at record numbers, right? The people being asked to step in and fill in, like who's making those decisions about like who's qualifying those people? Not only to like be able to teach math, science, English, reading, etc., but like to teach our humans, right? And one of the things that like I am passionate about is, right, nobody in their teacher education program is getting like really solid foundations in like restorative justice and like how we move away from like classroom management frameworks, right? That's just not happening. And so like, if we could add that to teacher education programs, like that would be great. But like, even like if it's added onto there, but like who's determining like, yes, you pass, right? Like how are we quote unquote gatekeeping the people that we're allowing into these buildings where like when there is still like such a drastic need for childcare. Like at the end of the day, like so much of the reason that school exists, why it does, is like childcare for people, right? And like, you know, speaking to like your recall, right? Like when people being so upset, like school is not reopening in like on the time frame that they wanted, right? For like health and safety reasons, right? Like, and the quote unquote learning loss that was happening, like so many people were just like, not that they didn't have childcare in the way that they had childcare before. And like, I'm not saying that that's a wrong take to have, but like, let's call it what it is, and not blame it on other things.
It's making me think, okay, so with this pandemic, we had an opportunity to truly shift education. And we didn't do it because of these fears of navigating systems that had people respond in this very understandable and very real way. In this instance, childcare. What the issue is that because we need a full systems change, and that would require entirely shifting the workforce. It would require even shifting our teaching day. It requires so many systems working interchangeably to have this outcome that firmly supports students and families. And people weren't willing to do that. They won't ever do that because if you change the way the workforce works, that impacts capitalism, that pushes back on every other aspect that people in power don't want to change.